watching a video about like oligarchy. Very interesting. If you're not already, make sure you are subscribed to my main channel. My main channel is Olive Oil Run. Also, all my social medias are in the link me, which is put in my chat. Also, you can just go into Google and type Olive Oil Run link me, and you'll find it.
I'm
holding my cat Molly. Molly's under the blanket, just so you guys know.
A backlash, generated a kind of politics of limiting the power of the few.
And in 1890, Congress finally passed a major anti-monopoly law. And then in 1894, we got the federal income tax. The federal government now has the power to take the money from the top that is highly concentrated and redistribute it to the rest of the country. This was a very big deal. But here's what happens next. Less than a year after the income tax law is passed, the U.S. Supreme Court steps in and votes 5-4 that it's unconstitutional, struck down. Eventually, the Gilded Age would give way to what we call the Progressive Era, when reformers gained more power in the U.S. and they tried to right a lot of the wrongs of the Gilded Age. Strong anti-monopoly laws, campaign finance laws, constitutional amendments that let us vote directly for our senators for the first time, which we couldn't do that before. And finally, we did get an income tax. We had to do it via a constitutional amendment. That was 1913, nearly 20 years after Congress had first passed it. And now look what happens. This line is the income tax for the top earners in the country, and this line is the concentration of wealth among the 0.1%, the top 0.1% in America. Watch what happens. Okay, play the graph. Look at this graph, look. The income tax goes up. This huge wealth inequality goes down.
The golden age of American capitalism, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, where a lot of people made a lot of money, but it wasn't concentrated to the same degree that it is now.
Okay, just hang on. I want to just go back because we got the income tax and it fixed a lot of things and it was transformative. But I just want to review part of that story. 1894, Congress passes the income tax. It goes into effect, it becomes law. 1895, Supreme Court overturns it, says this is unconstitutional. So it's a 5-4 decision, which means that 5 men overturn the representatives of the entire country. And then it takes almost 20 more years, like a whole generation passes before we're able to actually get that law via constitutional amendment, which is insanely hard to pass a constitutional amendment.
The only way to stop the Supreme Court, which had made this decision in favor of oligarchs, was to change the Constitution. There was no other way.
And this is the thing that Jeffrey Winters emailed us about. He wanted us to understand that the American system, where 5 men can overrule the will of millions like this is very, very deliberately designed. This is an example of how oligarchy is baked into the system to begin with. And to understand what he wanted us to know about this, we have to go back even farther in history to the beginning of the United States. So here's Jeffrey Winters' email. Short email, as we've said. Real quick note, he dashed off. Love this guy. He had just watched this video about how the American federal government was designed. And I would love if every viewer paused and went to watch that video, but if you're not going to do that, all you need to know to understand the point that Winters wants us to understand is sort of 2 things. Number 1, federal U.S. government, it's split into 3 sections, right? Congress,
make sure you guys are paying
President,
attention. This is a very interesting
courts.
video.
So Congress,
you
bicameral,
retards you to pay
houses,
attention.
Right? Lower house, the House of Representatives.
It's about oligarchy.
This one is voted on directly by us. We get to vote on who our representative is, and they represent us directly in the House of Representatives, right? The Senate, today, we do the same thing. Today, we do vote for who our senator is, but for the first 100+ years of the United States, it was not that way. The way it's written in the Constitution is the state government, the state legislature gets together and they decide this is who New York's senator is going to be. So it's not democratically elected, it's decided.
Eris is running away from him.
The president chosen
He's
by,
just fucking scared
famously,
of
the
him.
Electoral College, which today, again, has a connection to how we vote in each of the states. But at the
Should
time,
I
didn't
filter
really.
it?
It was supposed to be the electors, a wise group of men who was going to decide who the
Let's
president
get
was.
that shit
And then you
fixed.
have the federal court system, and who the judges who sit in
There
the
we
federal
go.
court system are selected by the president, and they are confirmed by the U.S. Senate. And the second thing you have to understand is that for any law to exist in the American system, all these bodies have to align. So both houses of Congress have to agree to pass a law. If either of them disagrees, it doesn't pass. The president can always veto a law that he doesn't like, and the court system can always decide this is unconstitutional, this law is actually not allowed. So there's a lot of different ways a law can fail in the American system. And what we learn about in school is that's called checks and balances. Another way of saying that is that it spreads power around multiple bodies. And this is what we say in our video.
Spread around so it doesn't get centralized around a king.
Yes. But what Winters was emailing us about, what he was saying, is that if you look at who's actually choosing who gets to be in these different bodies within the federal government, distributing power among them is not really spreading power around, because only this one part of it is designed to be responsive to the democratic will of the people, and the rest of them are chosen by other powerful people.
The Supreme Court's role is to make sure democracy can't do certain things. And the function of the Senate is to block what the House does. That's its historic function.
Winters' whole theory of the founding of the United States is that the Constitution, the American Constitution, doesn't spread power around, it is consolidating power with rich people.
So in that Constitution video, I remember taking great pains to go into these transcripts and really emphasize what these guys were saying, what they were saying in that room to sort of tell our story. And you're telling me that like there's an alternative set of quotes that like tells this other story that these guys were actually designing an oligarchy. What were they saying? I'm curious what those are.
It's true, like you can go into the transcripts of the Constitutional Convention and you can tell two different stories. Which of those stories is correct? They're probably both correct. But so let's look at this one, right? So you have James Madison warning that, under democracy, poor and working people, or as he says, those who labor under all the hardships of life and secretly sigh for a more equal distribution. Under democracy, those people are going to outnumber what he calls those above the feelings of indigence, so rich people, right? And that power will slide into the hands of the former. In other words, democracy might not give rich people enough power. Or there's another one. Another founder, he basically reminds his colleagues, like, guys, remember, a big reason that we created the Senate was to secure the rights of property. This is another one, saying the evils we experience flow from the excess of democracy. I don't know if any of these things is a smoking gun, but to me, what it sounds like it adds up to is they weren't just sort of like ideologically skeptical of a democracy that hadn't been tried before. They were specifically skeptical of regular working and poor people having too much power. It is this idea of a tyranny of the majority, that you need to balance out the majority with something else. And this is a core part of America's system of government. And I don't think it's wrong. It's just that Winters says there's another way to look at it. What he says basically is that is a big part of why it's important to talk about the US, even though oligarchy is a global system.
The United States in the 1780s set the model for how oligarchy and democracy were going to coexist. Many of the limitations on what democracy could do were thought up, put in place institutionally in the United States, and that really became a model for democracies around the world.
So what Winters would call the oligarchy that's baked into our system, this idea that you can't have a tyranny of the majority, that you have to have these tempering forces that counterbalance what the majority wants. We definitely exported that.
It coexists with a true democracy, with a place where regular people do have a voice, but there's a tension and a spectrum between oligarchy and democracy. That's like a slider that goes back and forth. And we, as we've seen that one graph that dips down when the income tax comes in and then comes back up, we're just sliding back and forth on that spectrum.
And again, the point is not that like, oh, the US is an oligarchy at heart. No, it's that the US is both of these things. And globally, if you live in a democracy, you almost certainly live in a system that is both of those things. The US is not unique in this sense. We're Americans, we like to talk about America, but the US is also important to talk about in this story because of our role in the formation of what modern democracies look like, our role in terms of the concentration of wealth that we have here, etc. At our founding, in our source code, oligarchy is right there. So's democracy. but they're both there.
We have within our reach a far more healthy society, but inequality tears at the fabric of society. It wears it thin, and it increases those conflicts horizontally among us.
Okay. So now what? What does all this mean? What can we do about it? First, let me just state plainly what I see is wrong here. It may be different than what you see is wrong here, but my read in all of this is that it's not actually bad to have rich people in a society. Someone who invented something, started a business, whatever, fine. Get rich, sell your stuff, get customers, get rich, buy cool stuff, whatever. The problem, I think, we can all agree upon is that when a small group of the top rich people in a country play by different rules to protect their money, that's wrong. That's unjust. That's money that belongs to all of us according to our laws. That's oligarchy, ruled by a few in the interest of those few. And it happens through all this boring paperwork. It's invisible, it's hard to track down, and it's incredibly hard to change.
I teach a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds, and one of the things that scares me the most about that is if they think politicians are greedy and corrupt, then they're not going to participate. And if they don't participate, there are no democratic guardrails that prevent the rapid concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few. And I think that's precisely what oligarchs want. They want like a paralyzed and cynical body politic.
But there actually are a few things that we could change right now. First, we actually have laws that would help this.
So we have something called the Corporate Transparency Act. It is a law on the books.
Like we have a law that actually bans anonymous shell companies.
It created a whole reporting system inside the US Treasury Department. And then in 2025, the Treasury suddenly made a rule that every US company is exempt from it.
Simply having transparency in this realm would have been a massive setback for oligarchs.
Next, let our government actually investigate financial crimes of the ultra-rich. Right now, the government can't really investigate super rich people because super rich people have armies of wealth defense professionals hiding their money for them. We just don't have enough resources to actually fight that fight. So instead, the IRS ends up going after like your rich dentist neighbor instead of going after the billions that are being stolen away by oligarchs. Properly funding the IRS, an agency that every single person in this country hates, is actually something we should do so they go after the right people.
Experts also talk to me about a wealth tax. So let's not just tax income, let's tax the actual wealth of the richest people.
Average citizens are already paying a wealth tax.
It's called a property tax. It's assessed by the government. You pay it annually.
But listen, for this to really change, it's gonna have to be something deep and structural, something that changes in the DNA of our country, how our system works.
Much deeper structural transformations that would really change the way wealth, power, and its political influence would be felt.
And Winters in particular can get kind of radical here.
One is eliminate all senates. Now, someone would say, how do you do that? It's in the Constitution. And what I'm saying is, during ruptures, things which one would think are not possible become possible.
I don't know if we need to go that far. I don't know, maybe, who knows? But there is another way of looking at this, which is that we can also tell ourselves different stories.
Would it be possible to disrupt this link between being rich and being good? So many people take for granted that you need to run the government like you run a business. It's not true. They're not the same things.
But remember, we've done this, a version of it. We've made this kind of change once before. We were in a situation where a few rich, unelected dudes controlled the whole society. And look, we reversed it. But you know what? That didn't happen all at once. It happened because for decades, people were talking about it. They were clamoring about something being wrong, calling it out, stewing on solutions, not letting this be normal. And then it took a catastrophe, a world war, a Great Depression, to create the opening for those ideas to actually take root.
The idea is that what seems absolutely ridiculous, undoable, not feasible, is actually possible during crises, during ruptures. And the key question is, are you ready?
Which means today we need to be looking at this stuff. We need to be questioning it, questioning our beliefs about it, so that when the moment is right, we will be ready to upgrade our society to one that is hopefully a little more equal and a little more fair. Stories like this one look very different depending on where you read them. Ground News helps me see those perspectives side by side. Go to ground.news/Johnny Harris for 40% off the unlimited access Vantage plan to see for yourself.
it.